The United States Capitol, often called the Capitol or the Capitol Building, is the meeting place of the United States Congress and the seat of the legislative branch of the U.S. federal government. It is located on Capitol Hill at the eastern end of the National Mall in Washington, D.C., though no longer at the geographic center of the federal district. The Capitol forms the origin point for the district's street numbering system and the district's 4 quadrants. The original building was completed in 1800. It was partly destroyed in the 1814 burning of Washington, then was fully restored within 5 years. The building was later enlarged, with the addition of a massive dome, and extended wings with expanded chambers for the bicameral legislature, the House of Representatives in the South Wing and the Senate in the North Wing. Like the principal buildings of the executive and judicial branches, the Capitol is built in the neoclassic style and has a white exterior. Both its east and west elevations are formally referred to as fronts, though only the east front was intended for the reception of visitors and dignitaries. Prior to establishing the nation's capital in Washington, D.C., the United States Congress and its predecessors had met in Philadelphia. In September 1774, the First Continental Congress brought together delegates from the colonies in Philadelphia, followed by the Second Continental Congress, which met from May 1775 to March 1781. After adopting the Articles of Confederation in York, Pennsylvania, the Congress of the Confederation was formed and convened in Philadelphia from March 1781 until June 1783, when a mob of angry soldiers converged upon Independence Hall, demanding payment for their service during the American Revolutionary War. Congress requested that John Dickinson, the governor of Pennsylvania, call up the militia to defend Congress from attacks by the protesters. In what became known as the Pennsylvania Mutiny of 1783, Dickinson sympathized with the protesters and refused to remove them from Philadelphia. As a result, Congress was forced to flee to Princeton, New Jersey, on June 21, 1783, and met in Annapolis, Maryland, and Trenton, New Jersey, before ending up in New York City. The United States Congress was established upon ratification of the United States Constitution and formally began on March 4, 1789. New York City remained home to Congress until July 1790, when the Residence Act was passed to pave the way for a permanent capital. The decision of where to locate the capital was contentious, but Alexander Hamilton helped broker a compromise in which the federal government would take on war debt incurred during the American Revolutionary War, in exchange for support from northern states for locating the capital along the Potomac River. As part of the legislation, Philadelphia was chosen as a temporary capital for 10 years, until the nation's capital in Washington, D.C., would be ready, stretching westward to the Potomac River. In reviewing Lunfan's plan, Thomas Jefferson insisted the legislative building be called the Capitol, rather than Congress House. The word Capitol comes from Latin and is associated with the temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus on Capitoline Hill, one of the 7 hills of Rome. The connection between the two is not clear. In addition to coming up with a city plan, Lunfan had been tasked with designing the Capitol and President's House. However, he was dismissed in February 1792 over disagreements with President George Washington and the commissioners, and there were no plans at that point for the Capitol. The word Capitol has since been adopted, following the example of the United States Capitol, in many jurisdictions also for other government buildings. For instance, the capitals in the individual capitals of the states of the United States. This, in turn, has led to frequent misspellings of capital and capital. The former refers to a building which houses government institutions. The latter refers to the entire city. In spring 1792, United States Secretary of State Thomas Jefferson proposed a design competition to solicit designs for the Capitol and the President's House, and set a 4-month deadline. The prize for the competition was $500 and a lot in the federal city. At least 10 individuals submitted designs for the Capitol. However, the drawings were regarded as crude and amateurish. reflecting the level of architectural skill present in the United States at the time. The most promising of the submissions was by Stephen Hallett, a trained French architect. However, Hallett's designs were overly fancy, with too much French influence, and were deemed too costly. A late entry by amateur architect William Thornton was submitted on January 31, 1793, to much praise for its grandeur, simplicity, and beauty by Washington, along with praise from Thomas Jefferson. Thornton was inspired by the east front of the Louvre, as well